In 2025, New York Yankees relief pitcher Devin Williams had what appears to be a poor season. In 67 games and 62 innings pitched, Williams went 4-6 while recording 18 saves. He earned an ERA of 4.79, adjusted ERA of 85, a WHIP of 1.129, struck out 13.1 batters per 9 innings, and earned negative 0.3 WAR. I don't think I need to explain why an ERA near 5 and a negative WAR are not such great numbers. It also just wasn't the stats that's notable, it's how he performed compared to years past. In a 3-year span from 2022 to 2024, Williams threw 141 innings during the regular season, while allowing 26 earned runs for an ERA of 1.66. That's again 26 earned runs in 141 innings. In 2025, Williams allowed 33 earned runs, a 30% increase in runs allowed in less than half the playing time. You get it by now, he had a bad season, so what's the point? Here's the thing. In spite of those marks, what if I said he actually wasn't bad, and in fact, performed well, just like across the past few seasons mentioned? You might be thinking I need to get my head examined for brain damage, but hear me out. Despite a 4.79 ERA, Williams also achieved a fielding independent pitching, or FIP, of 2.68. That is a wild disparity. I've talked about FIP in the past, but for a simple rundown, it's a stat that determines what a pitcher's ERA quote-unquote ought to be based on factors he has control over, aka balls not in play, like walks, hit by pitches, and home runs. This stat is useful because it doesn't take into account a team's defense. A great defensive team will be able to get outs on more balls in play than a shabby defensive team. In theory, a large disparity in the two stats could indicate a pitcher getting either very lucky or very unlucky. So, should Devin Williams have actually had a 2.68 ERA? Was he theoretically that good of a pitcher but got unlucky? We'll get to that, but first, I want to look more into the numbers. Having a disparity that high is quite rare. FIP and ERA usually don't have that big of a difference. I might even call it an anomaly. To see just how much of an anomaly Devin Williams' 2025 season was, let's compare it to other seasons all time. This year, there were 53 pitchers to throw at least 60 innings and have an ERA of at least 4.79. Williams' FIP is not only the lowest, it's almost a full run lower than the second lowest in Tyler Alexander. In fact, there were only 5 pitchers to have an FIP within 1.5 runs of Williams. For an interesting stat comparison, I'm fond of starting pitcher Walker Buehler's season. Buehler had a very similar ERA to Williams, a 4.93 mark. What was his FIP? 5.66, more than double Williams' FIP. Was Williams twice as good as Buehler despite near identical ERAs? Or would you say they were about equal? I'd love to know what you all think. To look at a wider picture, in 2025, there were exactly 287 pitchers to throw at least 60 innings. Williams' ERA ranks 235th, but his FIP ranks 20th. Yes, you heard that correctly. By all accounts, Devin Williams was one of the worst pitchers in baseball this season, but analytically, one of the best. Sticking with the 60-inning pitch threshold, there were 20 pitchers to have an equal or lower FIP. Of those 20, Williams not only has the highest ERA, he's just one of 4 pitchers with an ERA of at least 3, let alone 4. In another comparison, starting pitcher Chris Sale had a near identical FIP to Williams, being within only 1/100th of a point. Despite that, Sale's ERA was more than 2 full runs lower. Was Williams just as good as Sale, in spite of the ERA difference? It's kinda crazy that one can argue the answer is yes. That was all in comparison to pitchers this year. Exactly how unusual was Williams' season when compared to all of MLB history? According to StatHead, there's been over 4,650 pitchers in MLB history to throw at least 60 innings in a single season with an ERA of 4.79 or higher. Of that insanely large group, Williams has the third lowest FIP. The only two pitchers to beat him? Eugene Bremer of the 1943 Cleveland Buckeyes and Ralph Comstock of the 1913 Detroit Tigers. Over 80 years since the last occurrence, and over 110 since the last National League or American League won. By the way, since the end of World War II, only 5 pitchers in the NL or AL matched Williams' ERA and also had an FIP below 3. Here are those 5 pitchers, with only one coming within the past 45 years. So yeah, Williams is in some scarce company. If I may look at one more comparison, in 2000, starting pitcher Dwight Gooden had a 6.28 FIP across 105 innings pitched. That FIP is nearly 2.5 times higher than Williams's, yet Gooden's ERA was 4.71. For the third time, I must ask, was Dwight Gooden in 2000 better than Devin Williams in 2025? He did have a lower ERA after all, but that's up to you. I've talked a lot, so to summarize everything said so far, this past season, there was nobody that was as bad as Devin Williams to also be that good analytically. From a historical context, there's basically been nobody throughout history that matched his feat. Only 2 such occurrences ever, one from over 80 years ago, and one from over 100 years ago. There's still 2 big questions that remain. How did this happen? And does this mean Williams actually performed well, but just got unlucky? The main reason why Williams has a high ERA is because he allowed a lot more hard hit balls in play than usual. Throughout his career, Williams excelled at inducing soft contact. As you see on screen, he routinely placed among the best in average exit velocity. However, in 2025, we can see his placement dropped significantly. He went from being one of the best at inducing soft contact to one of the worst. Why does that matter? The harder a ball is hit off the bat, the higher chance it has to be a hit, especially an extra base hit. Using this trusty graph from MLB's website, there's a correlation between hard hit balls and high on base percentages. Yes, the graph is several years old, but the point is relevant. We can actually notice this trend in Williams' non-analytical stats. From 2022 to 2024, batters slashed 139 with a 254 on base and 214 slugging for a 468 OPS. That includes a batting average on balls in play of 234. In 2025, off Williams, batters slashed 197 with a 287 on base and 320 slugging for 607 OPS. That includes a batting average on balls in play of 299. That slugging percentage alone is alarming, as it jumped over 100 points. This is also why his hits per 9 innings rate was much higher than in years past. More of his balls in play went for hits, and often they went for extra bases. It also doesn't help that Williams was a much worse pitcher with runners on base. With nobody on, batters had a 542 OPS. With runners on, a 682 OPS. That explains why his ERA is high, but why is his FIP still low? First, the Yankees defense was simply not good. Their negative 2.2 DWAR ranks in the bottom third of all teams. If given a better defensive team, perhaps some of Williams' hits would have been outs instead. Second, several of his advanced stats were still amazing. To point out the most notable one, his strikeout to walk ratio was 3.60, so he struck out 3.6 batters for every walk he allowed. Of those 287 pitchers mentioned before to throw at least 60 innings this year, Williams' strikeout to walk ratio ranks 72nd, inside the top 25%. In layman's terms, many strikeouts with few walks equals a low FIP. Lastly, and I cannot stress this enough, a 607 OPS allowed is still incredible. Looking one last time at those 287 pitchers, Williams' 607 OPS allowed ranks 46th. Williams was just so incredible the past few years that his quote-unquote down year was still among the best out there, at least analytically. While his ERA may have been atrocious, I'm willing to bet anything it'll drop significantly in 2026, and he'll return to being one of the top relievers in the league. In 2025, New York Yankees relief pitcher Devin Williams had what appears to be a poor season. He was simultaneously one of the worst out there, but arguably still pitched amazing. It's a season that's been scarcely seen throughout MLB history, and one we might not see again for a very long time.